Here we are in part 2, same thing, angle pair relationships. Let's talk about what are the relationships between these angles in this picture. So you see this first one right here, A and B? They make a little rainbow, okay? So they are a linear pair. Rainbows appear in lovely places. So linear pair, they're also supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees, okay? These make the little V for vertical angles. I hope you're all thinking of these in your head. What does this angle here make? Let's see. These two add up to 90 degrees. Oh, and let's see, 90 I can make by, that's the letter C. So that's complementary angles. Complementary angles. And for linear pair, I could have, if you wrote supplementary, that would be okay, but more specifically is their linear pair because they are touching each other. Complementary angles. And now these two angles here, they don't add to 90 degrees, they're not across from each other, they don't make a V, they don't make a straight line, but it's interesting that these angles are across from this side, that's the same, and this angle is across from this side, the same. So that means that these angles must be the same, and two angles that have the same measure are congruent angles. Okay. So we're still just going to be practicing with these types of angles. Let's look at the last two problems on this page. Just trying to make it so you can see. All right, so these are, what angle pair relationships do they have, and use that relationship. So these make the little V across from each other. So we know that they are vertical angles. And vertical angles we know are equal to each other or congruent. So we're going to set these angles equal to each other. And we're just going to solve for that. Solve for that x. Subtract 3x from both sides. And I think you guys can handle adding 57 to both sides at the same time. Let's see, 3x cancels, 55, this is 62. 5x minus 3x is 2x, that cancels. So we divide by 2, we're going to get x equals 31. So we know that x equals 31. And it just says solve for x. We didn't have to go back and figure out what the measure of the angle was. So for that one, I'm at 31. And here, what is their relationship? Let's see. They don't make a V. They obviously don't look like they're congruent because this one's bigger and this one's smaller. But I notice, I hope you notice, they make the little rainbow. So that means that they're supplementary, or more specifically, they are a linear pair. And linear pair means they add up to 180. So we're going to say 4x plus 150 plus the 2x equals 180. And we're going to solve that equation. Well, these two are on the same side, so 6x plus 150 equals 180. Subtract so we can get the x by itself. I hope I'm not going too fast. Equals 30. Divide both sides by 6. You get x equals 5. And again, you just had to solve for x, so we're done with that. All right, so we finished that first little section, but I'm going to keep the notes for this going because this is related, and this is just a one-pager right here. More vocabulary. Welcome to math. There's lots of vocabulary in here. Transversal. Transversal is a line that cuts or crosses two other lines, at least. Okay, it could be or more. Okay, like look at Main Street. Main Street, or Main Street. It's going to cut through. It crosses Madison. It crosses Mollison. It crosses whatever else goes up and down. I can't think. First Street. Okay, so all of those. Main Street is a transversal to those other streets. It cuts through them. So in this picture, which line is my transversal? Is it M, T, or N? Maybe that's an L. I guess it's an L. I can't see. It's an L, MLN. Okay, so this only crosses one line, this only crosses, but look at N. N crosses these two other lines. So N is the transversal. Transversal. There's an S there. Okay. All right. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Angles in the same position. Okay, so look at angle 7 right here. See how angle 7 is the top right of these four right here? Well, which one does it match up with? Which one is in the top right? This 3 right here. Those are corresponding angles. What about, let's take 8. Okay, what does 8 correspond with? 8 is below the 7, so what's below the 3 over here? The 4. Those are corresponding angles. All right, let's look at 5. 5 corresponds with what angle is in the same position as 5? This one right here, and that means that 6 and 2 are also in the same position. Okay, so the corresponding angles that are in the same position, and we already did it visually here. So which angles are corresponding in the diagram? Angle 1 corresponds with angle 5. Okay, angle 2 corresponds with angle 6. Angle 3 corresponds with angle 7. And angle 4 corresponds with angle 8. Okay, so those are our corresponding angles. I know these look like L's, but they are angle symbols. All right. All right, now we're going to take what we've learned about the different kinds of angles. Okay, we're going to focus on vertical angles, supplementary angles, and corresponding angles, and we're going to find the value in all these different pictures. So let's look at this first one. Okay, we want to figure out what X and Y is. We want to figure out what that is. Well, what I see is that 135 and X are in the same position. It makes them corresponding angles. So one thing I need to write is that corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, this is very, very important. Corresponding angles are congruent. That means they have the same measure. And so that, since 135 and X are corresponding, that's enough information to tell us that X is 135 degrees. Okay, but what is the relationship between X and Y? Do you see how they make the little V here? So X and Y are vertical angles. And what did we learn about vertical angles? That they are also congruent. So that means Y also equals 135 degrees. All right? It's like a little puzzle that we're figuring out. Okay. Now, this whole idea of corresponding angles are congruent, it's actually, there's a little piece of information you need to know. It only happens when the transversal cuts parallel lines. Okay? So when the transversal cuts parallel lines, I abbreviated that, transversal cuts parallel lines, because you see over here, these little symbols right here, those little dashes, or they make it look like arrows, that's a symbol that this line is parallel to that line. So everything we just learned about corresponding angles being congruent, I can apply that to this problem because this is crossing parallel lines. Let's look at part B. Okay, part B, the transversal right here is not cutting across parallel lines, so I can't figure out, like, X is not the same as the 135, so that's not helping. But let's see what I can figure out. Look what I notice here. What do I notice about 135 and Y? They are a linear pair. Okay, that means they're supplementary, And what did you remember about supplementary? I can turn this into what number? 180. So therefore, if I do a little bit of math, y plus 135 equals 180. Okay, subtract 135 from both sides. We're going to get y equals 45 degrees. Okay, that gives us one piece of information. Now, what else can we figure out? Let's see. We know that this is a vertical angle. That's 135. Does that give us any information about any here? No, it does not. So x has no relation with 135 or the y, so there's not enough information. Not enough information. I could write that out. Not enough info. Okay, not enough info. So I can't figure out x on that one. We're going to keep going. Let's look at part C. Let's see. We want to figure out x. Ooh, this one's a lot. Well, these two lines are parallel. So that means that I can figure out this measure here. This measure here is going to be 53. And you're saying that has nothing to do with x. I go, I know, but I'm trying to figure it out. Let's see. This is 53. Why is that? Okay. Why is this one 53? That's corresponding. Corresponding. Okay. This is 53. 53 because it's vertical angles. But let's see. This line is cutting across two parallel lines, so that means this one would be the same as this would be the same as this x right here. Okay, so this x and that x, they're the same. That's why I put the x there. I'm using my little deduction. But let's see. Can I figure out? I don't know if I can figure this one out. Is there enough information? It almost doesn't seem like it, because these are not parallel lines, so I can't cross them this way. I can only go cross back and forth down here, back and forth over here. I don't think there's enough information. Okay, so no relation. So x, to find x, for finding x, not enough information. Not enough information. If I change my mind, I'll come back to that one, but it just doesn't look like you could figure out x on this one. So that's not corresponding. I can't, with what we know, nope, can't do it. All right, let's do part D. It's good to think about. Look at what we did find. Last one, part D, let's see. Okay, so this one right here, these are my parallel lines, so I know that this is the same, because these are also parallel. So these two are corresponding, and this angle right here that I just shaded in is corresponding with this angle right here. So far, all these three angles are the same measure. But what's the relationship between this one I just shaded in and the 3x plus 10? Please, please, please be thinking vertical angles. So that means that this is also the same measure. So we know that 4x minus 25 must equal whatever 3x plus 10 is. So that's what we have to solve for. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides, and I'm going to add 25 to both sides at the same time. So this is going to be 1x, that's going to cancel, equals 35. We just found out that x equals 35 degrees. All right? So that was three corresponding angles. This corresponds here, and then vertical angles. So we used, I'm going to write down what we used. Corresponding angles twice, then vertical angles. And that's it. All right.